He says the decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Republic versus Mensa Bosuena, the ex-party Attorney General, 1995-96 Ghana Law Report 377, governs this situation that he's referring to about the fact that contempt has already accrued based on what they have said, even if they file an appeal. All right, let's move on. ANAS ANAS, Martin Amidu says, a lawyer and the founding partner in Cromwell Gray LP with William Ajabe, now the special prosecutor, and his cohorts appeared to assume that when a trial goes against one's expectations, the trial judge must be vilified and attacked as an excuse for filing an appeal. Wow. Amidu is getting angry here. He's getting really angry. He's attacking them. He says that ANAS is a lawyer and a founding partner in a law firm together with special prosecutor Kisi Ajabe. And he says that they assume that whenever a trial goes against their expectations, then they have to vilify the trial judge and attack them as an excuse for filing an appeal. That's very strong, but let's move on. The plaintiff, Martin Amidu says, was reported to have said, plaintiff being ANAS, by the way, was reported to have said, amongst other things, about the judgments that went against him, that, quote, my team of lawyers and I have carefully studied the judgments delivered by the court, and we are unanimous that the judge made an overreach and descended into the arena and made a criminal pronouncement about me as if I was standing a criminal trial. Okay. Unquote. Martin Amidu continues. The civil action for defamation which ANAS voluntarily brought before the trial court involved criminal acts which were the issue in the civil trial, and the trial judge was bound to make determinations on them in the civil trial. How could the trial judge do that without using the rules of evidence on the burden of proof, which any trial court is bound to consider in making its findings on the evidence? Okay, so it's a bit technical and a bit complicated, but we'll try and explain this part. So the standard of proof, as when you go to court, what you have to show to the judge to support your claim. If you are in a criminal defense, because criminal can only be defense because criminal is prosecuted by the police. So in criminal matters, the police is always the prosecution. I cannot prosecute anybody criminally. No Ghanaian individual can. The Attorney General's office and the police do. So in all criminal matters, if any Ghanaian is involved, you are the defense, okay? And the police is the prosecution. Now, when the police bring a case against somebody in court and say he's a thief, for instance, in a criminal matter, it is a criminal matter, and the police prosecute because, as a society, we have decided that certain things should not be done. Certain things are abhorrent to our culture, and we have written them down. That's the codified law. We've written them down. So stealing, it means so and so. Abortion, it means so and so. Intimidation, it means so and so. Blasting somebody, beating somebody up. All those things we don't like, we've written them down. And we have also written what it means. That when we say stealing, it means you have taken something that doesn't belong to you without the knowledge of so and so, and you took it this way. So stealing is defined. So when we catch you and the police hear the story, they will now look at that list and put you in one of those things. So they hear the thing and they say, oh, this looks like stealing, so we are going to charge you for stealing. They say, oh, this looks like manslaughter, so we'll charge you like manslaughter. Oh, this is murder, so we'll charge you for murder. This is armed robbery, so we'll charge you for armed robbery. All of those things are listed. Now, in proving those matters in the criminal documents, the courts require the police or the prosecution to be able to establish that the person has committed that crime beyond reasonable doubt. So that not just that they should establish that the person has done it all, they should go beyond that and show that there's no doubt about the fact that it was person A who did this. If that person A is able to raise a small doubt about it, he walks free. It doesn't mean he didn't do it. It just means that the police were not able to meet the standard of proving beyond reasonable doubt. Because as a society, we don't want to put people in jail wrongly. Because when you fail a criminal prosecution, your freedoms are taken from you. You go to jail. Those freedoms are fundamental, given by God, and therefore, the policy doesn't want those freedoms to be undermined anyhow. So those freedoms are very, very important. So we cherish those freedoms. So for one's freedom to be taken away from him, the prosecution must convince the courts beyond reasonable doubt. Okay, so we understand that. The next thing is, if I have land at Ponkatamanso, and Samije, if he says that the land is for him, and I go to the land and I'm going to put poultry farm there, And I go and I see Sami Gyamfi has put NDC flags there. And I say, who came here? They say Sami Gyamfi came here. And I call him and I say, senior, what are you doing on my land at home? They said, but who told you the land is yours? That land is for me. I said, but I bought the land from Kofi Mensah. I said, Kofi Mensah sold it to me before he sold it to you, senior. I said, no, senior, this land is for me. He said, no, senior, this one you have to go to court. Then I filed a suit in the courts challenging Sami Gyamfi about the land in Pon Katamanso. Now, my case is that the land is for me. His case is that the land is for him. So when we go to court, I am to prove that the land is for me. But that proof that I'm proving, it is not to prove beyond reasonable doubt. No. The standard of beyond reasonable doubt is for the police and the criminal matter. Me and Sami Gyamfi, the standard is something they call on the balance of probabilities. So that on the balance of probabilities, who is more likely to be telling the truth? Is it Paul or is it Sami Gyamfi? When the court comes to the conclusion that on the balance of probabilities, Paul is more likely to be telling us the truth, we give the land to Paul. So that standard is lower. Okay. Now, when you go to defamation, which is what ANAS filed, it is a civil matter between ANAS and Kennedy Japan. So the standard for Kennedy to prove himself is the balance of probabilities, not the criminal one, which is beyond reasonable doubt. Okay. However, ANAS alleges that Kennedy Japan has called him a murderer. Now, murder is a criminal offense. So you are in a civil trial and then murder has come up. Kennedy Japan must now prove to the court beyond reasonable doubt that his case, that ANAS is a murderer, is correct. So ANAS says, you said I'm a murderer. Kennedy said, yes, I said it. The court says, Kennedy, prove it. Once he starts proving murder, the standard required of him is beyond reasonable doubt. He would have to prove to the court that based on this evidence, I am saying to you that ANAS is a murderer or ANAS is a blackmailer. Now, in challenging Kennedy Japan, the court would have to push him to be able to show it beyond reasonable doubt. If he's able to convince the court, then you will have that kind of tirade that the judge read against ANAS. And that is why ANAS said here that the judge was speaking as if he, ANAS, was on trial. Yes, he came on trial because the trial shifted. The burden of proof departed from his lawyers to Kennedy Japan's lawyers. They are alleging a crime, therefore they have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. Therefore, in those circumstances, yes, ANAS was on a full criminal trial to defend himself against an allegation of murder so that his case of defamation will be won, and to defend himself against a case of blackmail. That's why Amidu is saying that in these critical circumstances, that he was unable to appear himself, to defend himself and be cross-examined, to give the court another opinion, another view of the matter, was making his own case bad. That's really what Amidu is saying. That knowing the kind of, the extent of the trial and the kind of things Kennedy was to prove, to still suggest that you will not show up in the court to defend yourself because you are covering your face, you should have known that you are going to go down the judge's ruling. You should have known that. That's really what Amidu is saying. So that's the confusion we're trying to resolve. Let's move on and see whether we can follow up. Okay. The impression that by performing his judicial functions in exercise of the judicial power guaranteed under the 1992 Constitution, the trial judge had descended into the arena of conflict is an attack on the independence and impartiality of the judge and constitutes a scurrilous abuse of the court. Amidu is still attacking ANAS. One, he goes on, one who has confidence in his cause will quietly go on appeal without making any political fussy to save face. Reaction from the Media Foundation for West Africa and the Fourth Estate. What's Amidu saying? Okay, let me go on and see whether we can get it. On the same Joy News file on Saturday, Amidu says, 18th of March, Dr. Pumpuni Asante of CDD Ghana was reportedly quoted to have said that there are many cases that demand that the investigators resort to deception in order to bring the issue to the attention of the public for thorough investigations to be conducted in order to punish the perpetrators. I, Amidu says, came to the considered conclusion in my article of 16 September 2022 on the high degree of crusading integrity required to fight corruption and not entrepreneurship that, quote, the same influence peddling or trading of influence can be seen on the website of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, where two of the leading foreign influence NGOs have become integral partners of an independent Office of the Special Prosecutor, Afro-Barometer Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, and the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Martin Amidu is raising an important point with civil society and some of the things that happen that we are all concerned about. Now, he's saying that Office of the Special Prosecutor is expected to be independent. Office of Special Prosecutor is expected to be independent. So why is he affiliated with, on their website, with Afro-Barometer CDD? He calls it influence peddling. He may be right. He says it's influence peddling. You're a special prosecutor. It's like the director of CID, a Criminal Investigations Department, director of CID, COP something. Then on his website, it says, I work with Afro-Barometer and Integrity Initiative. What's that about? Martin Amidu is right on that. Okay. The story goes on. It says, the Integrity Initiative, without the slightest shame of conflict of interest in rigging the elections to chairpersonship of the Governing Council of the Special Prosecutor and violating Section 22 of Act 959, which forbids the OSP from accepting any funds directly or indirectly from anybody except from or through the Ministry of Finance. Well, Martin Amidu is raising important matters. He says that they are violating Section 22 of the Act because they are engaged with CDD and Integrity Nation. They might collect money from them, and that the OSP cannot take money from anywhere else other than the Ministry of Finance. Interesting. Okay. This partnership clearly negates the independence of the Special Prosecutor and now enhances the ability of the NGOs to use influence peddling or trading of influence to source funds, grants, and donations from foreign sources, first to meet their administrative expenses and salaries, and secondly to interfere in the independent operations of the OSP. Wow, Martin Amidu is quite strong. He goes on. I also found it amazing that the judgment of the trial court became an instrument of cheap politicking. On 22nd March 2023, at a lecture on financing political campaigns at the UPSA Auditorium. That lecture was given by President Mahama. I go on. Martin Amidu continues. The august speaker, who is also a contender for one of the political parties' flag bearership position at the coming party primaries, was quoted as having said that the problem I have with the insertion of the above last sentence as a cheap innuendo and malicious castigation of the court and the judge in the speaker's speech is that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo excelled and exhibited more sophistication in deceiving Ghanaians for their votes in 2016 elections, only to throw those values and promises to the wind as president of Ghana. There's something missing here, but it's interesting. It says that Akufo-Addo exhibited a bit more sophistication in deceiving, and President Mahama is not being able to do that, something like that. My second issue was with whether the former president, the former excellency, even found time to read the trial judge of 64 pages judgment, in which the judge reminded himself in section H at page 11 to 13 of his considered judgment on H, defamation and freedom of expression. Okay. My third concern was the deceptive allegation that the trial judge tagged journalists as terrorists without reference to the context of the findings and the decisions contained in the trial court's judgment. All right. The fighting against corruption has become the darling child of most corrupt members of civil society organizations who see anti-corruption as a profitable enterprise which protects and removes every suspicion from those entrepreneurs of being endemically corrupt themselves. This one I've taken again. This one is heavy. Let's take it slowly. He says, the fight against corruption has become the darling child of the most corrupt members of civil society organizations who see anti-corruption as a profitable enterprise which protects and removes every suspicion from those entrepreneurs of being endemically corrupt themselves. They themselves. They are the corrupt more than the people they are chasing. Okay. It is easy to squander donor funds under the guise of fighting corruption without raising an eyebrow. I wish one could make an inventory of the properties acquired by some of the management of the so-called entrepreneurial anti-corruption civil society organizations and compare them to the acquisitions made by some honest public officers and the honest political office holder after several years of long service to Mother Ghana. Hey, as somebody says, we should compare properties and see what's happening. Okay, it's